And every place we go, especially on the Upper West Side, is a corporate entity making itself felt. The mom and pop stores are gone because they can't afford the rent. They can't afford the rent that corporate entities can pay. They can't do the branding that corporate entities can do. And so all the little touchstones that make our lives connected, the people who sell you your paper, the folks who make your coffee, they've disappeared. And now you've got the New York Times in the machine on the corner, and the Starbucks or the Dunkin' Donuts on the corner. And this is not necessarily bad. I love Dunkin' Donuts. I love Starbucks. I love waving my little phone app so that I can pay just like everybody else. And there are parts of corporate life that make our lives easier. But there's parts of corporate life that make us forget who we are. This is not an old conversation. This is not a new conversation. It's an old one. It's an old one. But the problem is bigger even than whether or not we forget who we are. And why our liberal religious values need to matter. We need to be able to look one another in the eye. We need to be able to connect to one another. We need to be able to resist the corporate creeping nature of modern life. Because money creeps along with that corporate presence and threatens very directly something we hold so dear as liberal religious people, and that is the democratic process. Our capacity to choose for ourselves the leaders we will have, our capacity to debate the great ideas of the day, our capacity to gain information about the things that face us as citizens and human beings is materially affected by the massive amounts of money and control exercised in corporate life. And all of that power and that control is not exercised on our behalf, but on our detriment. Our truest opponent are not the bankers or the Fed or Congress or evangelical Christians or Rick Santorum, even though we have issues with all of those people at some point or another. At least most of us do. But they are only symptoms. No matter how offended we are by all these things, they are symptoms of a fundamental disorder, and that disorder is fundamentalism. I believe that fundamentalism of every kind is the clearest danger that affects us as liberal religious people. It doesn't matter whether it's the religious fundamentalism of people who insist that life begin at conception and that anybody who disagrees with them be barred from taking care of their own bodies, or economic fundamentalism that insists that the market will take care of everything if we just let it run wild, or political fundamentalism that believes that anything you say and do in politics is okay as long as you win. It's fundamentalism that's a threat to us. It's fundamentalism that is eating at our souls and destroying our country and its possibilities for you and for me and for our children. Faith is really the only antidote to fundamentalism. Faith in the inherent goodness of human beings, faith in the goodness of life itself, faith in a power greater than ourselves, whether we have a name for that power or not. For me, it's God. I'm old school universalist, so it's about God for me. Faith in democracy and in the democratic process and in the power of the people to know one another and to love one another and to govern themselves. That is what we have to root ourselves in again. That's what we have to stop taking for granted, because we are liable to lose it all. Fundamentalists count on our cynicism, they count on our weariness, they count on our busyness, They count on our bitterness. And they depend on our fear, and they stoke it for personal gain and for corporate gain. They think that all the people who matter to us, like Dr. King, or Clarence Russell Skinner, or Margaret Fuller, all those great voices that talk about the interrelatedness of life are optional. Remember what Dr. King said, that all life is interrelated, that somehow we're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Remember what Clarence Russell Skinner said. The universalist idea of God is that of a universal, immanent spirit whose nature is love. It is the largest thought the world has ever known. It is the most revolutionary doctrine ever proclaimed. It is the most expansive hope ever dreamed. We're meant to forget that. We live in a world that encourages us to forget it. We surround ourselves in our daily lives with people who think it's kind of cute and romantic, but not really real. But if we don't make it real, if we don't try our very best to live by that principle and witness to it in all that we do, something incredibly precious is being lost and might even be destroyed. I always hate to get up and make these Jeremiah kinds of statements like we're all going to die. It sounds like people talking about the end of the world. But one of the reasons that the Occupy movement caught the attention of so many people is that it answered a question and a need in people's hearts because folks know that something is not right. Folks know that love and commitment and community have disappeared under a wave of corporate non-existence. I'm not a Luddite. I like computers. I like tote bags. I like to shop. I like all those things that folks like in America. I do. But I don't know if I like it so well that I want to lose my country over it. I don't know if I like it so well that I want to lose the capacity to debate, to argue, to vote, and to have my vote actually count. And all of that is at risk. The very idea that a state government like Michigan could pass a law declaring that in a financial emergency, a person can be appointed and throw out every elected official in a community. How many of you knew that? This is better than a lot of people. A lot of people don't even know it. I don't understand why there isn't an outcry the length and breadth of America. The idea that we could sit down somewhere or get up in the morning, vote for people, and then have a bunch of people we've never seen tell us, I'm sorry, you're broke, therefore your vote doesn't count. You can't afford democracy anymore. It is not a coincidence that most of the places where this is happening are communities where people of color live, because it's happening in Flint, Michigan, Benton Harbor, Michigan, a few other small towns, and is about to happen in Detroit, Michigan. It's outrageous, and if it weren't for a couple of newscasters like Rachel Maddow, I wouldn't know anything about it, and neither would you. If we want to stand on the side of love as liberal religious people, we have to make sure that everybody has the right to speak for themselves and act on their behalf and live in a way that they want to live with dignity. That is the work of love and the work of justice and the work of universalism.